All right, my name is Chris Campbell. I'm a practicing CPA, and I work with small businesses and individuals to help them pay the least amount of taxes while keeping them out of jail. Today, I wanted to talk about the 3 types of taxes that any small business owner needs to be aware of and account for. Because what tends to happen is when I wind up speaking with new clients, they want to obviously make sure that they're taking care of their taxes, but they tend to focus on income taxes and not aware that there are other taxes that they need to take care of. And I've unfortunately seen a number of situations where they're not paying attention to the other sorts of taxes, and unbeknownst to them, because they thought that they were getting their taxes done and they were taking care of their income taxes, but they weren't aware of their other tax obligations. So I just wanted to run through them briefly, a small description of each, so that if you're operating a business, you need to be aware of these things and make sure that you're staying on top of these types of taxes. The first one, the main one, is income taxes. So that's usually going to be the biggest tax that you're going to have, and that's the tax that most folks are aware of. You want to stay on top of it. You go to your professional and you say, hey, look, get my taxes done. Usually you're referring to the income tax. Most folks have that covered. The other is the sales tax. Now, this is a big one because I've seen countless businesses where they're just simply not accounting for sales tax. They've been operating, and some didn't know that they were supposed to collect it, or some just didn't necessarily know how to go about doing it. Now, with sales tax, not all businesses are subject to sales tax. It depends upon the business that you're in. Most services businesses don't have a sales tax. Your accountant, so to speak, consultancy, if you're doing any sort of yard work, landscaping, that type of stuff, personal services, don't necessarily require sales tax, but sales tax varies from state to state. So you need to check your particular state to see which services, if any, are subject to sales tax, and also see what goods are subject to sales tax. So for example, I'm in New Jersey, and clothes are not subject to sales tax, but in some states they are. So you have to check and see what your state guidelines are as far as what is actually subject to sales tax. So you have to stay on top of that. And then there's a bunch of other rules. I don't want to go into it with this video, but let's say if you are an online retailer of goods, there are rules that each state has as far as if you owe sales tax to that particular state. So let's say if you have an online store, you're based out of New Jersey, and you sell something to someone in Kansas, there are usually thresholds as far as the number of transactions, volume of transactions that you have in order to owe sales tax to that particular place. But again, every state has its rules, laws about that, so you need to check up on that to see what the thresholds are for that. So sales tax is a big one, so make sure you stay on top of the sales tax. The third thing that you need to be accountable for are payroll taxes. These are taxes that one business must pay based upon their paying employees. You have employees that you actually have on W-2 salaries, so not folks that you're paying as contractors. That doesn't count. You're not taking any taxes out. But if you have salaried, or I shouldn't say salary, but if you have W-2 employees, you have to account for the payroll taxes. What I've come across is many employers or new business don't realize that the employer owes payroll tax as well, in addition to the employee, because most folks, when you've had a W-2 job, you've worked and you see the taxes come out of your check. Most new employers, they're used to seeing taxes come out of the employee's check, right? Because I'm sure probably at some point they were an employee and they've had taxes taken from their check, so they figured that was the extent of the payroll taxes that had to be paid. But they don't realize that the employer has a share of payroll taxes that they have to pay in addition to what was withheld from each employee at both the federal level as well as the state level. So that's another thing to account for when budgeting. When you're budgeting and you're anticipating hiring an employee employee and you're putting them on salary, depending upon the state that you're in, you have to budget about another 10% just to cover the payroll taxes that you're going to have to pay in addition to that person's salary. So now, as far as compliance with that, most payroll providers do cover this, so it's a lot easier to be in compliance with the payroll taxes. There are a lot of payroll providers out there. Your popular ones are your ADPs, your Paychecks. One I personally like to use, Gusto. A lot of these vendors cover all that, so they make it quite easy for you. So usually all they ask for is how much you're paying in an individual, and they'll calculate everything for you and they'll let you know what it is that you need to pay. That part of it keeps you pretty easy to be compliant as long as you're using one of those payroll services. So I don't see that necessarily getting people in trouble as much. So those are the 3 taxes that you need to account for. I hope this helps. So if you have any additional questions about this subject or any other tax or accounting subject, feel free to reach out. Happy to help. Talk to you in the next one.